under Standing Order 11.21, Roman numerals 4, on the steel industry, and I call on David Rees to move the motion. David.
Diolch, Deputy, and I move the motion in my name. As members are aware, the steelworks in Port Talbot is the beating heart of my constituency, my hometown, and the glass finishes breathe the fire that comes from this Welsh dragon. And to be honest, I cannot imagine the skyline of Port Talbot without those glass finishes as part of it. I've never known it to be anything else. So steel is part of my DNA and is very close to my heart. Deputy Llywydd, it only feels like yesterday that we were debating the future of the steel industry in Wales here in this chamber, and I remember in the chamber in Tŷ Hywel when we were recalled. But it's almost 3 years since the industry was in that critical position. Tata was up for sale, all looking closure at the Talbot works. The global markets were hitting the steel producers, all of them hard. And today, I am pleased to say the industry is in a better position. And we must praise the actions of the Welsh Government to get to this point. We have also seen Tata investing in their plants, including Port Talbot. Only today, they've had an announcement from the local council in Port Talbot of the approval for plans to reduce dust emissions in the plant. More investment going in to the works at Port Talbot. But it also looks to upskill and build the workforce as well, including a vibrant apprenticeships programme in that works. A clear sign that Tata have confidence in the future of that steelworks. The steel industry in Wales, not only at Port Talbot, is a vital part of the Welsh economy, and we must protect it. However, whilst we had hoped that the future of steelmaking was assured following the actions of the sector and the Welsh Government, we now face up to more challenging times. The high energy costs continue to present difficult economic challenges within the industry, and now the uncertainty of Brexit is making those challenges bigger and deeper. It is critical that at this time all parties work together to secure the future of steel, as it once again hits uncertain times, ensuring that we safeguard the local economies of Port Talbot, Llanelli, Cardiff, Newport, Shotton, let alone protecting our industrial skylines. During the recent difficult times which our steel communities have experienced, the Welsh Labour Government's focus has been on securing a successful and sustainable future for the steel industry in Wales, one which targets the retention of steel production and jobs. They've invested in all three major steelmakers, providing support for research and development, given a commitment to decarbonisation and continued support for employees. The Welsh Labour Government has demonstrated that they will not abandon the steel industry here in Wales. However, the challenges being posed to the sector by Brexit and high energy costs cannot be resolved by the Welsh Government. It is now time that a commitment from the UK Government is given to steel producers and their employees. They want assurances that the steel industry will not be forgotten during Brexit, and the UK Government will finally deliver on the promises of tackling the disparity on energy costs between the UK and the EU. Now, these are the areas I will concentrate on today, but I'm sure there will be more, otherwise I'll be here all afternoon. I don't intend to dip with Llywydd. Just 2 weeks ago, steel producers and trade union reps attended the Steel CPG here in the Assembly, which I chair. In that meeting, we heard damning evidence from the sector about the disadvantages they face on a daily basis when it comes to energy costs. This was further compounded this week by UK Steel's annual report on energy costs here in the UK compared to France and Germany. In 2017, the Tory manifesto committed the Westminster Government to seek delivery of the lowest energy costs in Europe for both domestic and industrial consumers. 2 years later, the industry is still waiting. In 2018, the same Tory government released its industrial strategy, which once again promised to make the UK the best place to start and grow a business. Yet steel was a byline in that document. There has been some action since then on energy efficiency. However, no amount of energy efficiency improvement will counteract having to pay 50 to 100% more for your electricity than your competitors. At our CPG, we were told that energy costs in the UK are 110% higher than France and 55% higher than Germany. And there are worries that this is going to get worse, not better. And support at £65 per megawatt hour was needed to close today's gap, let alone what may happen in the future. Now, we've argued for many years that our steelworkers are asking, all they're asking for is a level playing field to make them competitive in the global marketplace. Our steelworkers, in my view, are the best in the world, and their commitment to the industry over recent years shows that they can play their part. But they need the UK Government to step up to the plate now. They want the UK Government to actually respond to the UK Steel's report on energy costs. Now, that outlines 9 measures for the UK Government to implement immediately in order to give the industry a fighting chance in the changing global economy. To give the UK government incentive to take action, the UK's 5 largest steel producers made a firm and direct commitment that all savings on electricity costs would be put back into the industry in the UK, thus delivering cost parity with Germany. Would deliver £55 million a year investment over and above the business as usual. And this represents a 30% increase. Now, with this commitment from the steel sector, to me, it's a no-brainer that the UK government should join in. Such funding would provide vital research and development funding for the industry in years ahead, particularly as we will see the loss of around £40 million a year from the Coal and Steel Research Grant administered by the EU, which, as I mentioned last week, will be paid back to the UK government's treasury. This money was paid into the EU by the steel and coal industry and is money that they are entitled to and should have full access to. And yet the UK government has refused to ring-fence this for those industries. Research and development is vital as we move ahead to ensure that we stay ahead of the global competitors. And in the UK, we have seen fantastic research and development initiatives going ahead, particularly here in Wales. I'm sure colleagues may want to mention some of that, especially as it's in my constituency. Now, I find this absolutely appalling. I want to continue to fight alongside the industry to ensure that this money which is actually from the industry itself, is going back to the industry. It belongs there, it should stay there post-Brexit. I'm sorry, Diplomat, it does lead me on to the B word. I hope to get away with it this week, but there we are. On Monday, UK Steel published its report, Implication of a No-Deal Brexit in the UK steel industry. Genuine fears of a no-deal Brexit. And I appreciate that we're not there yet, but it's looking more likely. In that report, they identified 7 key areas that would be impacted upon to different levels as a result of Brexit. Movement of goods, EU tariffs, free trade agreements and non-EU tariffs, rules of origin, which sometimes we forget about, trade remedies, safeguards, research and development. And I'm not going to discuss all of those in this contribution, but I'll just focus on 3, which are some blatant and obvious ones. Movement of goods, rules of origin and safeguards. And they'll have a direct impact on the steelworks in my constituency in Port Talbot, because 30% of the steel from Port Talbot goes to the automotive industry. 80% of that being UK-based, which sounds positive. Here it is in the UK, so not worry about it. But when you put the fact the cars are exported to the EU, and those cars will be subject to tariffs, then we can see the impact. And we saw only this weekend the decision of Nissan to reduce or remove the X-Trail production here, Nissan being a possible client of Tata. I know they do the Duke, but here we have a situation where, again, we're seeing automotive industry moving away from the UK. Now, that has major implications for Welsh steel being sold in the global market, because we want to see more Welsh steel on the global market as a consequence of that, and that is going to be challenging. This exported steel will then be subject to EU tariffs if you have no deal, and the tariffs are estimated between 4 and 5%, and we currently export 2.6 million tonnes to the EU, and Turkey will want to grab some of that marketplace, and we export 300,000 tonnes of steel to them, and they could actually impose 15% more tariffs on top of that. So, if there's a deal, no risk. If there's no deal, we have some serious trouble, and we will also be facing tariffs of the US and other countries, and even facing the EU tariffs, because we've no protection anymore. It's really disastrous possibilities. A no-deal Brexit will see UK steel or UK manufactured components, because don't forget, steel goes into the components and other aspects, and there's your rules of origin coming in. And therefore, EU manufacturers will kind of look at exactly how much steel are in their components, because where the rules of origin will take place, will they have to reduce UK steel and look for EU steel? And you might say Tata has places in both, but we are looking at the industry here in Wales, and it will impact upon the industry here in Wales. Now, I do know the UK government is looking to replicate the existing EU free trade agreements, and as a result, 50% of a car produced in the UK is made of UK steel. It will be subject to tariffs, and we've got to look at that very carefully. We need to protect safeguards and combine the US tariffs, and I'm concerned a little bit about the trade bill and the remedies, trade remedies in that, because 97% of our current exports go out under EU FTAs, and if we don't have protection there, we will be facing real challenges. But to conclude my contribution, UK Steel is on a precipice once more, I'm afraid. I am proud that this is a Welsh Labour government that has been proactive but I'm worried that the UK government is failing our industry. To me, it's time they stood up and acted to save our steel industry. They didn't last time. Now it's time to do it. Our fantastic steel workers want it, our producers want it, and our local communities deserve it.
Susie Davis.
Diolch